The Grow My Cleaning Company podcast helps owners of cleaning companies just like you to grow your company and yourself so you can make more money and finally get the time and money freedom that probably got you into this business. Discover how to automate and create systems that allow you to grow like crazy without losing control. If you dig the show and want to show some love, subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. It really helps. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Clean Nation. This is Tracey Thompson here with Grow My Cleaning Company. And I am here today with Mr. Roger Turner. Say hi, Roger.
Hi, Roger. Hi, everybody.
Roger is our resident comedian and client extraordinaire. Roger's been with us since he just informed me that he's been with us since 2019, you know, the pre-COVID world we all used to live in back in 2019. And Roger has been on a couple of podcasts with us, and he's here again today to talk a little more in depth about like what it took for him mentally, like mindset wise and otherwise in strategy to get where he is today. So he's going to get us caught up. Just so if you've never met Roger before, Roger Turner started Turner Building Maintenance in March of 2013 in Auburn, California. And since then, Turner Building Maintenance is they're growing super fast, right, Roger? Your cleaning company is now in the greater Sacramento region, specializing in office buildings. And approaching, is this right? $750,000 a year. Is that right,
what?
Roger? What?
That much? No.
You're like, really? Is that what my numbers say? Yeah, Roger's he's being modest right now, but we're gonna clear that up right away. No modesty here.
Okay.
Only truth. So, Roger, since the last time you were on this podcast with Mike, for example, tell us about that journey from where you were. What was it, like 6 months ago or so that you had your last talk with Mike on the podcast?
Yeah, probably at least 6 months. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So tell us what's been going on in Roger's world in the last 6 months.
Oh, I don't know. A lot of changes. It's always interesting to me how I'm always bumping up against my ceiling, right? So there's that ceiling of what I can do with my business, how much I can make, what I'm capable of, all that sort of stuff. So, and looking at just how I started the previous mindset coach, what initially started it, because I'm like, I've got to grow my business, all this, because I had subcontractors. Everything, right. All my business was 100% subcontractor. And Mike knew exactly what was happening. He goes, let me guess, you're only getting, 15% of gross profit. And then out of that, you have all these expenses. It keeps growing. So that's down to 10%. It's going down to 5%. You're working hard to, not get any more money. So the bigger you get, the lower your margin is. I'm like, how do you know that? Like,
you're Mike the psychic.
Psychic, yeah. He's just worked with a couple people. So, and the other mindset coach, she's like, no, stop thinking you have to grow so much to be able to get this extra profit. Just change your business model. You already have enough business. Just switch it over to employees. And I'm like, oh my God, And once she showed me the numbers, I'm like, oh my God, how could I not see that? Right? It's just all this awareness that I couldn't see before. So, and it's just make a decision, take a leap of faith, right? All right, I'm just going to do it, and scared to death, and just to get first employee, right? First employee, and how do you take over the business from the subcontractor, and which one do you take over, and how do you do it, and then and on and on. So it's just literally pushing past the fear of doing that. And I still had a full-time job selling
at the time,
selling janitorial supply. Right. So there's been all these points of jumping off, and it's literally, she goes, no, make the decision. And then you figure out later how to do it, which usually it's the opposite, right? I'm gonna figure out how to do this. And then if I can't figure out, you're not going to do it. No, you got to make the decision, make the leap. So there's been
so true.
so many of those were, I love being part of the group because whether it's Mike or you or the other people in there, it's this like, oh my gosh, I never thought about that way. And it's like, then I get scared, and then you make the decision and then just, move forward. Anyway, so last year, February, I think I started with my first employee, and I have 5 or 6 employees now that have been with me for over a year.
Nice.
And so I don't know how many employees I have because it changes so much, right? It's that fluctuation. We hire a bunch and then some don't stay. And then we hire more. And so we keep building them up to around 20.
Awesome.
So around 20 employees. And and then just how to implement the hiring funnel, the sales funnel, when I get to a certain point, and especially when there's problems, right? When there's problems where it's like, people are quitting or people don't show up and it's the weekend and it's like, I'm tired of spending my weekends, working 8 hours, 10 hours, 16 hours, trying to cover people's shifts and run around and do stuff. And so part of it was that's what's happened like the last 6 months is I'm not going to work. I'm not going to clean.
So what I just want to stop for a second and just really reiterate what you just said, because this is so important to Clean Nation. There's so many business owners out there that are still stuck in that cycle of, well, if something goes wrong, I have to be the one. I've got to be the one to go out there. I have to clean. You don't understand. There isn't anybody else. So from a mindset, and I'm a mindset coach, so I'm always going to go back to what it took for you mindset wise to make that shift. So what was that decision that for you that you made where you said, okay, enough is enough. I'm choosing not to be that person. So tell me about the mindset shift.
Well, it's funny when I'm sitting like, why do I have this mindset shift? I'm like, oh, I think I know what it was. Because literally since I got a girlfriend, it's been like, I don't want to be working all weekend. It's like,
imagine that.
I want to spend time doing something else. I have my kids' soccer games and all these other things. It's like, I don't want to spend all this time working. So but it was cool. Once I made it's like, there's this impossible thing. 2 people didn't show up. We got all these accounts to cover. It's like, oh my God. And my assistant and my supervisor don't necessarily work that much on the weekends, right? They're full-time during the week. So it's like, crap, what am I going to do here? So it's not only me making the decision, it's making sure that they know what the decision is. So
right.
It's like, I don't work, and the supervisor, I'm like, I don't want you working either. I don't want you sitting there working all weekend because it's funny. She's a hairdresser. Things are busy. Her shop is open. But she still likes working for Turner Building Maintenance. She likes working for me. So she likes being part of the group. And so that culture is there.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't want you to get burnt out, right? Because someone's like, oh, I'll go cover their shift. I don't want you doing that. That's not what you do. So making that decision, make sure they're clear on that. So it's an impossible weekend. 3 people call out. It's like, oh my God, how do we cover this? I'm like, I don't care. Making the decision, like, I don't care what we have to do to make sure that there's people in those accounts. So dialing for dollars and they're dialing and texting. And, it's like every time we get it covered. We find a way to get it covered.
Isn't that interesting? I love that. And Clean Nation, this is important. Pay attention to this. So Roger, what I've heard you say so far a couple times is decision. So mindset, decision first. When you decide, then you retro engineer, was what I like to call it, retro engineer. You retro engineer the solution. You find the solution, because when you're all in, you and the word decide means to cut away all other options. So it's like burn the boats. I'm all in. I've decided, and I'm 100% committed to that decision, deciding not to work on the weekends, deciding that your manager isn't going to be the one to cover either. Then that required you all to be creative and for all the sort of the forces to come together to rally for that decision. And people, I think a lot of us tend to not believe right ahead of time. It's like, believe that that will happen. But until you do it, you don't know. That's the monkey mind. We call it the monkey mind around here. The monkey mind takes over and goes, oh no, that's not going to work. You don't know. And goes crazy. So when you first tried this approach of making a decision and then retro-engineering backwards, how many times, how many different ways? I'd love for you to share even like some other instances in your business, how you grew to $750,000 in revenue by using this decide first, retro-engineer after approach.
Well, just different reasons. Some of it's out of sheer terror. I'm out of town. Stuff happens. It's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm freaking out. Right. And it's like, so it's not a matter of if I can go cover a shift, I'm gone. I'm out of town. I'm busy. I'm like, holy crap. And just out of fear, start like, I have to. And it's like, well, hey, it worked then. Why can't it work when I'm in town?
Right.
And make that part of the culture. And, and it's, once you make the decision, a lot of things start opening up. Offer a bonus for someone to show up. Okay, I'm not going to make money that day, but I'm not going to be cleaning. Or I'm not going to make money on that one account.
Temporarily.
And temporarily. And there was a couple weeks back where there was we didn't get all the shifts covered. Right? Two people, their boyfriend, girlfriend, and they 2 hours after they're supposed to cover their first building out of 3, they said, oh, we quit. We're not coming in. It's like, oh my God. So now it's 2 people to cover, and some other stuff happened. And I was just like, okay, this is cleaning. We're not dealing with people in a rocket ship out in space and they're going to die, right? This is cleaning. So we got 2 out of the 3 buildings covered. And the third one, we didn't get covered that night. I'm like, so what? And the next morning, then I made more steps like, okay, we had time the next day to be able to cover it. Can we cover it the next day? Great. We found someone to cover it the next day. Okay. Problem solved.
So what you're saying is, in combination of making a decision and going with it, regardless of the original motivation, but making the decision and retro-engineering, just figuring it out, that even if something doesn't go exactly as planned, you mean the whole world didn't blow up and people didn't?
Not that time. Maybe next time, but not that time. Right.
So here's the moral of the story is what I'm hearing is as you've grown, as you've become bigger, the business has become bigger, you're delegating more, you're developing I call it the confidence loop. You're feeling more confident that the whole thing isn't going to fall apart and you're not going to lose all your business. You just keep making these decisions in leadership and allowing your team and you to retro-engineer and figure it out. Right?
Oh, it's literally, it's like, building a muscle. It's just keep doing it over and over and over. And it's like, how did I not know how to do this before? And it is becoming easier. So things like I catch myself and there's always, seems like there's always fear. It's like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? What's going to happen? And then, but once I make the decision, it's like, a lot of the fear will go away because it's like, no, just make the decision and then go with it. Like deciding, okay, I'm going to have $1 million business. Oh my God, how am I going to do that? How many employees? And then, and so lately we have issues with employees, right? And so far how the funnel that I used to have set up was working. And then once I hired my assistant, it's shifted away from, she's calling one by one and instead of having everybody come to and I'm like, this isn't working, right? Because we're not getting the flow that we did before. It was working fine before, but now when things tighten up, I'm like, no, we need to go back to, I just made a decision. This is what's going to happen. And I'm going to find a way how to do it. So I've been talking to other guys in the group and, how are we going to make this happen? And here's the, so I spent a lot of time lately getting this set up and trial and error. So with Indeed, I have all these old lists of people that are there. So I said, okay, there's there's got to be a way to be able to, there's people in there that still need work, and just the system, I need to get it back to how something that worked, that's automated, that I can have my assistant do, or a VA, and I keep telling them, we need to slice off these things. You're getting too busy, right?
Mhm.
I need you to elevate what you do and slice off all these remedial jobs and part of that's the hiring process, right? So
Yeah.
Got that in place, and literally last night I sent out about 220. I exported all the data from Indeed into this other program, a texting program, and tested it and made sure it all worked fine, and all the messaging and through the landing page and Calendly and all that stuff. So got it set up, and within, like, this morning, I think I have 10 or 11 people coming to the first one next week.
So what I'm hearing you say
So
is,
immediately it worked.
right.
So I got a bunch of people.
Mike teaches this all the time. We talk about it inside the program, inside of Next Level, but also in Elite. The sermon that we keep preaching is having a system, following the system for hiring, having your hiring funnel, having your system in place. But something else I wanted to circle back around that's so important. I think it's missed. And I think, Roger, you've been in this with us for so long that maybe now it's a little taken for granted, but that is culture. Your core values-based culture. And I know you and I have spoken about this a lot in the last 6 months about how amazing it is to have a core values-based culture that attracts and cultivates and creates loyalty within an organization. So you've talked a lot about your lead managers, your team. You have 20 cleaners at any given time. So there's the systems, but I'd love for you to comment about culture and how that's worked for you, because I know you've had big aha moments around that.
Yeah, it seems to work every time in whatever area it is. And I see it outside of work. And I just, every Monday we have a meeting with my assistant and supervisor, and this is something we talk about. Mm-hmm. And they're like, yeah, this person, we're like, yeah, we need to move them out, get somebody else in. Why? Because they don't have the core values that we have. Right. And do they show up on time? No, they're not responsible. They don't show their responsibility. They're not helpful. They're not helpful, responsible, profitable, or what's the other one? I'm forgetting what it is. But they just don't show those core values. So it's like, you can't, when they show you who they are, believe them, right? You're not going to change that.
Right.
Not going to change. So, we're going to put the hammer down and make sure they're going to show up on time. We're going to put the hammer down and make sure they clean toilets the way they're supposed to. We're going to put the hammer down. They just won't do it because
I want you to speak to, I want you to speak to Clean Nation out there. So many business owners, Roger, right now, commercial or otherwise, really have subscribed to this idea that all you have to do is pay more than the competitor, pay them more money in their wage. And that is the only way to compete or the only way to keep good people. And although you pay your people well, that's not the number one reason, right? You've told me this. It's not the number one reason your people, right, come to you and stay.
Passion. I'm sorry. That was the other passion, profitable, responsible, helpful. Yeah. I'm like,
there you go.
Right. So my assistant and supervisor, right. I keep telling them what my vision is, and I explain to them the 50, 30, 20, and how that works. And if we have a sub, so there has been 2 buildings. There's one building. I couldn't get it right. I couldn't get it right. No matter what we had, I'd put in, it takes 2 people to clean it, and I put in 10 different people. Just couldn't get it right. And so I went back to the sub that I used for one building, put him in there. Things are working. But I explained to him what that means.
Right.
I get 15%. That's my gross profit.
Right. Which is more than a lot of people, Roger. There's a lot of business owners out there right now that are like, well, 15% would be awesome. They're not even making that.
I'm not managing, I'm not training, I'm not running supplies over there, I'm not doing hiring for it, I'm not doing, there's a lot of things that go into that 30%. So I explained to him that, this is what we miss when we have a sub like that. So, so when I can bring on more business and we don't have any more overhead, that leaves us a lot of room. So when we hire somebody else, we have a new a new customer, and it's a $3,500 a month, and it takes one person to clean 3 days a week, and so we don't really spend a lot more on. I'm not hiring another assistant, or another supervisor, so I'm like, you two are my biggest costs for that category, that 30%. And when we can bring on all this new business, and there's not 30% extra expenses with it, that means I have now more money to put towards you guys, so that's why I want to elevate you guys in what you do. And they're like, great, so what do you want? Do you want pay? Do you want, all these things? They're like, well, yeah, of course we want all those things, but they're passionate about it.
So what you're saying is when you're profitable, and just to share with everyone what you meant when you said 50, 30, 20, those are the ratios: 50% cost of goods sold, employees, 30% overhead, and 20% profit. Okay. True minimum net profit. What you're saying, Roger, is when you're profitable, then you have room to do things like make sure that your culture, the culture of your internal business, your team, you can take care of people. You have room to wiggle with different creative solutions. There's a lot of flexibility when you're profitable. I love that. And I really want to get Clean Nation, get some of your pearls of wisdom on a couple things. Okay. So here we go. I'm going to ask you a couple questions, and then you get to share your point of view on these topics. So one is, if you had to recommend one really pivotal key software or system or a book, something that Clean Nation could really use right away that you have found super useful, what would that be and why?
Grow my cleaning company.
We did not pay him to say that.
Follow the system. It always comes back to that. Every time I try and do something different and it doesn't work, I'm like, well, maybe I should do what Mike says to do. It work out. It happens every time. So I just was thinking this week, I'm like, all right, I need to go back through some of the stuff and and there's not everybody's on auto pay, and I have a bunch of that could be on auto pay. It's like, so that would lower my time and having to go get checks and deposit them. I don't get me wrong, I love getting checks, but it's a pain doing that. And why not? And it's cash flow. So
yep.
Instead of getting paid at the end of the month, why don't I get paid at the beginning of the month and it just shows up on time? What a concept, right?
Exactly. And I love that because we have a millionaire mastermind group, and they always say the same thing, Roger. So what you just said is exactly what they all say. I was like, you know what? Honestly, if you follow the system, and this was not intended to be a plug for Grow My Cleaning Company. However, the one thing that Mike has done really, really well over the course of these years and helping hundreds of cleaning company owners is put together the systems. So when you follow the system and you're profitable and you're growing and cultivating your culture and your core values, everything suddenly, and it's funny, it feels magical, even though it's not really magic. It's a formula. It's the right kind of work in the right areas. I love that. So, Roger.
But it's that mindset of letting go.
That's right.
Of how I think things should operate and how they just kind of fall into this default state. And it's like, then I run into troubles like, I got to move it back to, make the decision to move it back into, and that's what I keep thinking about. Okay, yes, things are going well, but I work a lot, right? I'd rather work less, and still make the same money. So how can I do that? Does that mean I'm going, that's it, I'm going to get this done and not have to not have to work anymore. No, it just means like maybe I work, instead of working 16 hours, I work 12 hours or 10 hours or 8 hours or 6 hours, or or I pick certain days where I don't work as much, or making sure I don't do much work over the weekends, or I try and automate more and more so that I can spend a little less time. The thing is, I enjoy working. I even enjoy cleaning. I like cleaning. It calms me.
I think most owners out there in Clean Nation actually enjoy that part. And we're not saying you don't enjoy it. We're just saying when you want to take weekends off with your girlfriend and you want to spend time with your family and you want to have a life and you actually want to have profit,
I can't be out cleaning.
Yes, right.
Right. I'll clean my house and I'll get that bug out of my way. But so as far as the software, it's like, okay. I mean, there's, you can use Indeed. I use Indeed and Calendly, and there's all the different softwares to use, and there's a whole bunch of them that are all the same. But yeah, following the Grow My Cleaning Company method, all the stuff that's been number one. I keep going back to that. And how am I gonna automate so I can work less if I'm just going to keep the company, or what if I want to sell it down the road? How am I going to evaluate my business? I can't really evaluate it. It has lower valuation because it's not automated. So if I do actually want to sell it at some point, then I have to automate so much more to be able to get out of the driver's seat and someone else can actually buy the business. So
perfect. I love it. And words of wisdom. So one last question before we wrap here and let everyone get on to the next podcast we're going to be bringing up next. What's the one piece of advice for Clean Nation that you could give right now that you feel is most important, that would move the needle in their business the most? What's one piece of advice you would give?
It's funny you ask. What just popped into my head before you said that. I'm like, I need to say this. What I keep telling my assistant supervisor and keep telling myself, we can do it now if I have 30 buildings. Can I do it if I have 100 buildings?
Ask yourself that question.
Absolutely not. And they're like, oh my God, we'd be swamped. It would be this and that. I'm like, that's why we need these systems in place.
Yeah.
That's why we need to do now, what's going to work when we, because we will have that many buildings. So we need to set it up now. We're going to crash and burn if we don't do it. And we have 100 buildings. We'll be just running around like, and I'll have to hire more of you and all this. And it'll just be like, we got to get the systems in place. So that's what I always project. Can I do it if I have 100 buildings? Can I do now the systems and stuff that I do now? Can I do it if I'm 3 times the size?
Right.
No, I can't.
That's awesome. So Clean Nation, ask yourself, at the size that you are right now, the systems that you have, the hiring process, the onboarding process, everything, all your processes, could it withstand a 3x, 4x growth expansion? And if not, then this is a clear indication that you need to level up your systems or create systems where you don't have them. And on that note, I will just say that we are here to help. If you would like to talk to a coach about anything we've talked about today, for example, Roger is a great example of someone who has followed those systems. If you'd like to talk to a coach, go to growmycleaningcompany.com/talk and get on a call. You got nothing to lose. And believe me, if you're ready to grow, this is the way. So thank you so much, Roger, for joining us today. And Clean Nation, we will see you on the other side. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Well, here we are, the end of the podcast, and you made it. Great job. I've got a little bonus for you for sticking through with me, but like I mentioned before, if you got value out of this podcast and you want to show a little love, subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Spotify, wherever the heck you're listening to this thing. Share with a friend, share the love. And as a special thank you for those of you that stuck with me to the end, how about I give you my personal phone number so we can text? It's a great way for me to get to know you, your business, your goals personally. So shoot me a text now, 602-932-6431. That's 602-932-6431. I am the only one who responds to these texts, and I will personally respond to everyone I possibly can as long as this number is manned. Don't know how long we're going to keep this at the end of the podcast, so grab it now, 602-932-6431. Give me a text, say hey, can't wait to meet you.